Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're cracking open a 3,000-year-old cold case, and it's a big one. We're talking about the legendary and supposedly deadly Curse of King Tut's tomb. Just imagine this chilling warning, supposedly carved right at the entrance of this ancient tomb. It set the stage for one of history's most fascinating mysteries, a story just packed with bizarre deaths, strange coincidences, the kind of stuff that's captivated people for 100 years now. Okay, so where does this all start? Well, the story of the curse really kicks off with one man, its very first victim, and a whole series of strange, almost unbelievable events that happened right after he died. And that man was Lord Carnarvon. He was the wealthy backer, the guy who poured a fortune into finding Tutankhamun's tomb. This discovery was the absolute high point of his life. But then, just 4 months later, a tiny little mosquito bite brings the whole thing crashing down in a very, very public way. And this is where things get really weird because the coincidences just started stacking up. You've got a citywide blackout at the exact moment he dies, and then thousands of miles away, his dog just howls and drops dead at the same time. Come on. For the media back then, this was gold. The curse wasn't just some spooky idea, it was a headline, a guaranteed front-page story. But wait, to really get why this curse story had so much power, we've got to back up a little bit. Let's go back a few months to the moment that started this whole incredible thing. So you've got this archaeologist, Howard Carter, right? For 15 years, he's been digging in the Egyptian desert, with Lord Carnarvon footing the bill. We're talking a massive amount of money, millions and millions in today's cash. And they'd found pretty much nothing. It got so bad that Carnarvon basically said, look, this is it. This is the last season. After this, the money's gone. And then, bam, they found it. A hidden staircase, a door that hadn't been touched for millennia. Carter peeks through this little hole he made, holds up a candle, and that's when he says those famous words. What they'd found wasn't just a tomb. It was a time capsule. Over 5,000 incredible artifacts, just sitting there. A solid gold death mask, even a dagger made from a meteorite. Just unbelievable. This was the discovery of a lifetime, right? It literally rewrote the books on ancient Egypt. But almost overnight, those exciting, triumphant headlines, they started to get replaced by something way, way darker. The story of the curse was just getting started. Get this, in just the next 6 years after they opened that tomb, 22 people, 22, who were connected to the dig in some way, died. And not just of old age, we're talking mysterious, untimely deaths. And the list just kept going. People dying from sudden fevers, weird illnesses, there were even suicides. You can imagine, every single one of these deaths was a huge story in the papers, just adding more fuel to this terrifying fire. The message seemed crystal clear, didn't it? You mess with the Pharaoh, you pay the ultimate price. Okay, but here's the kicker. This is the detail that for a lot of people was the smoking gun. When they finally got around to examining King Tut's mummy, what did they find? A little lesion, a mark on its left cheek. The exact same spot where Lord Carnarvon got that fatal mosquito bite. It was like the Pharaoh had left his calling card, right? A 3,000-year-old signature on his first victim. So you can see why everyone was convinced, right? You've got a rising body count, you've got this super creepy physical evidence. It looks like an open and shut case. But what if the real explanation has nothing to do with supernatural revenge? What if it's all just science? All right, now let's put on our detective hats. Because when you start to look a little closer and you add in some historical context, the whole foundation of this curse story, well, it starts to fall apart. Okay, first things first, that super spooky warning, the one about death on swift wings, it never existed. Total fabrication. There was no inscription like that anywhere in the tomb. Turns out a journalist just made it up because it made for a way better story. So what about all that other weird stuff? Well, the blackout in Cairo, that was actually pretty normal. The city's power grid back then was, let's just say, not very reliable. And the dog, Susie? Once you factor in the time zones, yeah, she actually died hours later, not at the exact same moment. Bummer for the story, but that's the reality. And if you look at the deaths themselves, well, there are some pretty logical explanations. Lord Carnarvon, for instance, wasn't in great health to begin with. That's why he was in Egypt for the warm, dry air. And remember, this is 1923, no antibiotics. A simple bug bite getting infected could absolutely turn deadly. Plus, think about the tomb itself. It's been sealed up for 3,000 years. It's the perfect place for some nasty ancient mold or bacteria to grow, stuff that could easily cause a fatal lung infection. So the science is pretty convincing, right? But honestly, the biggest piece of evidence against the curse isn't about who died, it's about who didn't. And this is really the fatal flaw in the whole curse legend. I mean, think about it. If there was a real curse, wouldn't it go after the main people? Lord Carnarvon's daughter, Lady Evelyn, was right there with him, one of the first people inside the tomb. She lived to be 78. The doctor who actually did the autopsy on the mummy lived to be 87. And the #1 target, the guy who physically broke the seal, Howard Carter, he lived for another 16 years. He basically outlived the hype.
You know, for the rest of his life, reporters would constantly ask him about the curse, and his answer was always the same. He'd just point to himself and say, "I am still alive." He thought the whole thing was nonsense, and his own long life was the best proof he had.
But here's the most incredible, ironic twist in this whole story. The thing is, Tutankhamun, he was a nobody king, a minor pharaoh. The rulers who came after him literally tried to erase him from history, chipping his name off monuments, leaving him out of the official king lists. And for 3,000 years, it worked. The world completely forgot him. But then, because of a mosquito bite, a power outage, and some really creative journalists, this made-up curse turned him into the most famous pharaoh who ever lived. In the end, the myth gave him exactly what his enemies tried to take away: immortality. And now you can be sure no one is ever going to forget the name, Tutankhamun.